How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for joining me. And thanks for joining Hollywood Times and telling us a little bit about what Wreaths Across America does. Can you tell
Yeah,
us a little bit about yourself?
absolutely. Joe Reagan, I'm the director of military and veteran outreach for Wreaths Across America. I've been involved with Wreaths as a full-time employee now for probably a little under a year. But as a volunteer, I've been involved with the organization for probably close to five. Our mission at Wreaths Across America is to remember our fallen veterans, to honor the sacrifices of our military members, our veterans and their families, and to teach the next generation of Americans the value of freedom and about the sacrifices that are made on their behalf each and every day. Um, so for me, that's of course tremendously important. I'm an Army veteran myself, and so I've seen, um, what our veterans can bring to our communities across the country, and I think that there's a lot of power there that can really do some good for folks across the community.
Wonderful. And I know you got a bunch of events that you guys had listed on November 15th. So I guess next week there's going to be an escort to the Arlington convoy. And there's also your official event on December 18th. Can you tell us a little bit about those events?
Right. So I think you're thinking about the convoy that goes from Columbia Falls, Maine, where our headquarters is, to Arlington National Cemetery, is going to kick off on um, Sunday, December the 12th. And over the
Okay.
course of the week, it's going to work its way down through the East Coast and make its way down eventually to Arlington National Cemetery. But more importantly, is across the country on December the 18th, which is National Wreaths Across America Day. At this point now, almost 3,000 cemeteries across the country will be participating in wreath laying events, and all of those wreaths will be coming at some point from our headquarters up in northern Maine.
Wonderful. Your organization, is it where you guys based out of? And I see that you're spanning quite a few states, going from Maine all the way down to Virginia. Where are you guys based out of, and how was Wreaths Across America founded? I'd love to kind of hear a little bit about the
Yeah.
history of your org.
Yeah. So Wreath Across America started really as a um, just kind of a family thing to do. The Worcester family, Morrow Worcester is our founder, runs a company by the name called Worcester Wreath Company. And back in the early 90s, in 1992, he found himself with about 5,000 extra wreaths that he didn't get a chance to sell during that holiday season. And he thought back to when he was a child. So when he was about 12, he had won a competition to get a trip down to Washington, D.C. And one thing that always stuck with him about that trip was his trip to Arlington National Cemetery. So fast forward back to 1992, he has these extra wreaths and decides, you know what, I'm going to take these wreaths down to Arlington Cemetery, and I want to lay these wreaths on the tombs of or the gravestones of our veterans, as a thank you for all the things that we have to be thankful for as Americans. And that's a tradition now that has continued, and this will be the 30th year that the Worcester family has placed wreaths at Arlington National Cemetery. Now, the nonprofit Wreaths Across America started in 2007. After one year, the there was a snowstorm in DC, and so this wonderful image of all these wreaths on the headstones covered in snow really went viral, and people said, "Wow, that's a really moving sight to see." And so the national nonprofit that is Wreaths Across America was founded. And now, not only are we working at Arlington, but as you mentioned, we truly are across the country. So over 3,000 cemeteries in pretty much every state in the country. In fact, this year we picked up a cemetery in Guam. We have participating
Wow.
locations in Puerto Rico. So really, this is but prior to COVID, we actually even went overseas to some of the U.S. cemeteries in Europe as well. So it really is. It is a and I always say there's two aspects to the story. To go at the end of the day and to look at a cemetery with all these wreaths covering these headstones, it's just tremendously powerful when you think of the scope of what you're looking at. But for me and for many of the folks that participate in the wreath laying, that power really comes down to that micro story. And so that opportunity to go and when we lay that wreath on the headstone of that veteran, to say the name of that person.
Yes.
And, it sounds so simple, but at that moment, when you say that name and you're standing there in the presence of that person, really, uh, it creates that connection and that bond with that veteran. That's tremendously powerful, and it can be different types of connections. So for someone like me, who has several friends who were killed overseas, that's an existing personal connection. In maintaining that connection in the future, in the present, even though they're no longer with us. But for folks that this might be a complete stranger, this might be someone. The first year that they laid wreaths in Arlington Cemetery, they put them way in the back, where kind of the where the first people were interred there at Arlington. So folks who had really no living relatives there to recognize them. And one thing that I've heard it from a couple of different places, but they say that everyone dies twice. And there's when your heart stops, and then there's the last time that someone says your name. And
Oh,
so through this program, you being that person that keeps that individual's memory alive. And so it's funny. It's a very the very visible part of what we do is the wreath laying. It sounds so simple, but it really is. It's a powerful expression of our commitment to living up to the legacy of those men and women who have served our country and are really the ones responsible for all the amazing things that we have.
absolutely. Now in California, which cemeteries are you guys at, or are you working with nonprofits here local? Because I love our local audience to be able to participate. And how do we go about doing that? Because I myself work with a lot of veterans, American Legion halls. Like I'm going to dinner next week of mostly Asian American veterans in Monterey Park.
Mhm.
That served in recent wars and also passed all the way back to World War II. So tell us a little bit about how we can get involved in
Yeah.
locally here.
We do. In fact, we have so many participating cemeteries in California. I couldn't possibly memorize all of them. But if you go to wreathsacrossamerica.org,
Mm-hmm.
there you can search by locations. You can put in the zip code, and you can find those participating cemeteries that are close to you. And also, really important is if you look at. So you mentioned working with Legion posts, with VFW
Mm-hmm.
posts. Um, we have, and this is a rough count by my numbers, but probably close to 500 partnerships with individual Legion posts, VFW posts across the country,
Got it.
who are out there volunteering their time through really one of two programs that we offer for fundraising partners. And so we have what's called our two or 3 for 2 partnership, where for every two wreaths that an organization gets sponsored, we'll give a third wreath to them to help them achieve their goal of getting full coverage on their cemetery. And then the program that I really, and how I got involved with Wreaths Across America, is the organization that I used to work for. We were what's called a $5 back program. And so for every wreath sponsorship that we got, we $5 that came back to our organization to help us support living veterans in our communities. So when you look at organizations like the American Legion, like the VFW, any of the Asian veteran groups that you're talking about, all of these organizations are doing amazing work out in the community. And through this program, it helps us to enable them to do that amazing work, because it's we can sit there and we can honor those that have gone and have passed, and that's important. But what does it really mean if we're not living up to that legacy and supporting the living veterans that are still in our community? And and uh, it's this kind of a side note, not related to what you're talking about, but the Hollywood connection, and looking at, we talk about what I talk a lot about what veterans bring back to their communities. And if you look at Hollywood, I mean, several very notable folks in Hollywood that had served in the United States military. And one in particular, my great grandfather served in the First World War, and one of his friends and neighbors was a guy by the name of Walter Brennan, who many in Hollywood would know. He's one of only a few actors to have actually won 3 Academy Awards. And I think IMDb has him listed as being probably one of the most iconic American actors ever. And one of the things that made him distinctive was he had a unique voice. And I learned that my great grandfather was he was an artilleryman in the First World War and had been in several gas attacks. And the reason that Walter Brennan's voice was higher pitched was as a result of damage to his vocal cords because of a gas attack as well. And so, and I think that we often do, we make that same response of saying, oh, well, this person was wounded. That's horrible. But then looking at what they did. And so a guy like Walter Brennan, who despite being wounded, used that in the future, and it helped define his career and found tremendous success in that. So I think that for me, so going back to that last portion of our mission, that teach component, to help share those stories of how our veterans that are living in communities across the country continue to give back and use the skills and the experiences that they've had in the military and bring that back into their civilian lives and create tremendous amount of value for the organizations and the communities that they support.
Oh, I love it. So, I just did that search on the different, cemeteries, and there's quite a few in the Southern California area. And I'm looking at, a lot of them in LA, closest to, where we're based out of. Mm-hmm. And, the ones in Orange County are pretty well supported. I see like the one in Brea has about 9 local fundraising groups supporting. And then the one in, I think, Mission Viejo or Irvine has like 13. So there seems to be a lot of support already. But then there are ones that are less supported. The one in San Pedro only has 2. And then the one in Altadena, which is right by Pasadena, the Mountain View Mortuary and Cemetery, only has no groups assigned yet.
Yeah.
So and then the one in LA has 25 groups, and that's in kind of the West LA area, Sepulveda. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking at the one in Altadena, and that's that is actually a high population area. I'm surprised there are no groups assigned. What can we do to help, and what can the community do in preparation for December 18th to make an impact and maybe become one group to support that one?
Yeah. So again, through the website at wreathsacrossamerica.org, you can find, so it's just like what you did. You can go and you can search by location. You can sign up to be a sponsorship group, as I mentioned, and you can pick one of those cemeteries and become one of those supporting groups. But another thing that people sometimes will look at is they'll look at, so I was had a conversation with a group in West Virginia, yesterday, in fact. And they did the same thing. They said, we don't really have any cemeteries near us. I said, well, of course you have cemeteries near you. They're just not participating. Well, so and also when you do that, you look, as you drive by and you're driving around the course of the day, and you see that neighborhood cemetery, and you look at something like Arlington that has hundreds of thousands of veterans interred there.
Yes.
And of course that's a big deal. And like some of the cemeteries that you mentioned in Southern California, very, very large cemetery. So it requires a lot of groups to get in there and to support that. But we also have small cemeteries, family plots, where you might only have maybe 2 or 3 dozen headstones to provide that coverage. And I think the important thing here is the goal here is to honor all of these veterans. So if you are an organization and there's a cemetery that you know of that's not participating, well, take that on as a project. And this is a great project for Legion posts, for VFWs, for Boy Scouts, Civil Air Patrol. Civil Air Patrol is one of our largest partners. The Sea Cadets, another good one, with all the naval presence down there in Southern California. All these organizations are we'd love to partner with as many people as we can to get out there. And because for us, it really is about coming together as a community. And, heck, personally, I'm willing to work with any organization that wants to get involved to find a way to get them involved that's going to be beneficial for them, because we want this to be a meaningful experience. We want them, we want everyone to have an opportunity to have that moment when they connect with that veteran as they lay that wreath.
And on December 18th, will you have, is there going to be a big social media push where everyone across the country is showing videos of, laying down the wreaths and all of that that day? What's that day going to look like?
That day, in fact, the next really month and a half are going to be pretty intense for us. So when you think about that, trying to coordinate all this stuff happening at over 3,000 locations, I mean, there's quite a bit. But we have Wreaths Across America we're on Facebook, we are on Instagram. So following us there, and you can see all these pictures that will come back from these various events.
Wow.
Usually the day of, we do get quite a bit of attention that is focused on Arlington. Because that really is, Arlington National Cemetery, it's America's cemetery. And so for us to come together there is a big deal, but it doesn't take away anything from the fact that this is happening at cemeteries across the
way
country,
to Guam.
all the way to Guam. And once COVID is done, then we'll go back to Europe, I hope, because I think that was, and one story on that is in, I want to say it's Luxembourg. They actually have what's called an adopt a grave program, and there's a waiting list of families in Europe that adopt the grave of a U.S. service member. And year after year, they'll go back and they'll maintain that plot, and they keep in touch, with the family back in the States. And just a tremendous amount of support that they show to those Americans who are buried overseas, whose loved ones may never have had or will never get the opportunity to go over and be with that loved one again. So it's those types of small things that you look at. And it's funny, I just came out of another meeting with a potential sponsorship group here in Colorado. And, we go to the meeting and I was explaining all this. I'm like, man, I didn't realize you guys did all that. But it really does, when you look at what Wreaths does and what we're enabling through some of these partnerships, it really is quite powerful. And what's great about Wreaths Across America Day on December the 18th is you kind of see all that come together in one moment.
Culmination of all those efforts.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, this is a really special year, being that this is going to be the 30th year that those wreaths have been laid at Arlington. And just to think that started with 5,000 wreaths. And I think this year, if I'm remembering my count correctly, we're on par to do well over 2 million wreaths.
Wow.
So that is, that's huge. And it gets done because of the volunteers, right? And it's it. These are men and women in their communities who are volunteering their time to go out there to coordinate these activities at their cemetery, to coordinate with cemetery directors and the VA and all these different organizations to make this happen. And I think that's just a really amazing thing to see. And, as a nonprofit, of course, we're always looking for folks to sponsor these wreaths at $15 a piece. But more important to me is, for your first time, just go find a cemetery on December the 18th and go and participate and see this in person. And I assure you that once you experience it, it'll be something you will do year after year, because it really is that meaningful. And so that's,
That's great. Anything else you want to tell us? And if not, let us know all your social links, like your Facebook, Instagram, all of that, and website. Obviously, the website is wreathsacrossamerica.org. I'm on it right now. I see, it's very simple, because you have the map, you do the search, it shows you the cemeteries, you click on it, and you can be a sponsor of like one wreath for $15 or multiple. It's really, really cool. And, I think I might get involved in this with my, American Legion partners. And I'll reach out to you, Joe, because, this is so cool. And December 18th, we'd love to be part of that. So I will talk to you offline, or whoever is, in charge of that I should be speaking to, just connect me to them. And, we'd love to get involved.
Yeah, no, you can absolutely reach out to me. If you go on there, like I said, it's really easy to register yourself as a participating location or a sponsorship group. And as we get closer to Wreaths Across America Day, again, the intent behind this is we want to create, a meaningful and safe opportunity for everyone. And so, every cemetery is a little bit different. Every state is a little bit different. All that information is going to be available on the website. So continue to check back, and, that's where you're going to find information on how best to participate. And like I said, I hope people do, because I think it is going to be, it is a very rewarding experience.
And what are your social links again on Facebook? How do we find you? Is it Wreaths Across America on all social media?
Yeah, if you just search Wreaths Across America, it will come up. Make sure you find the official page. There are a lot of smaller local groups that sometimes have pages that kind of fall under us. But the best one is our main page. I would also say that we have a on the iHeart radio platform, we have a Wreaths Across America radio station as well, where we not only highlight music that is kind of military. I guess I don't really call it military theme, but kind of like a patriotic military type theme. But we also will have information there about activities. We'll host interviews with some of our location coordinators to hear those stories. We have a program called Mission Matters that I host along with our executive director, Karen Worcester, to highlight why what we do is so important. And then also over the course of the year, we've been hosting a series of roundtable discussions to help talk about some of the issues impacting veterans as well. So that radio station, again, it's available on the iHeart platform, so folks can listen to it wherever you are. But it's a great resource for us to share those stories, not only our own story, but of the organizations that we partner with too.
Wonderful. And before I let you go, Joe, what is do you have a personal story of what got you involved? I know this is now your life's work being, involved, in the staff level with Wreaths Across America. And, basically, I'm assuming this is your full time, you dedicate all day long on this. What inspired you? What really, what was that impetus to get you, to get involved and to do this to the level you're doing?
Yeah, it was kind of it's a long story. There was no one moment. As I mentioned, prior to coming to Wreaths Across America, I ran another nonprofit that was focused on supporting homeless veterans and veterans with chronic mental health issues. Something that was very, very difficult work. We had an amazing team that just really went above and beyond to make sure that veterans, even those that were in some pretty difficult situations, were ultimately able to thrive in the community and get back on their feet. We like to say we were giving veterans a hand up, no handouts from us, but it was a hand up. And through that program, I had an opportunity to start engaging with Wreaths as a volunteer. We were one of those fundraising groups. So like I said, we were, as part of our, holiday season fundraising campaign, we would do wreath sales. And as I got to know our executive director and founder, Karen and Maura Worcester, really well, I think on numerous occasions, Karen had said to me, she's like, one of these days I'm going to steal you. And it just so happened that about, I guess coming up on a year ago now, opportunity presented itself where I was looking to make a shift into something different, and they were looking to expand their reach. And so Karen really gave me the opportunity and said, I'm not really sure how to do it, but we really want to expand our support of living veterans in these communities, and I think you're the person that can do that. And so to be given that opportunity to feel that empowered to be able to have that impact on fellow veterans, that was it. I was given an opportunity to do something great for fellow veterans, and that's something I couldn't turn down. And it's been I'm still a short timer here, but it has been a very, very rewarding time to be here, and I really do look forward to continuing to promote our mission.
I bet. And, you had mentioned something about mental health. And I know that's an issue with a lot of our, veterans that come home and they deal with a lot of the, after effects of a war. And what is your thought on the solution of that? I really like what you said about hand ups, not handouts, because that's also, my philosophy on going about things. You got to empower and work with, a desire that's already there to get better and to inch towards health and positivity. What do you think are the best ways to go about it? I know Wreaths Across America is one way, honoring them and giving them that dignity of respect for their service and all of that. But what are other ways that we can help?
The number one barrier that exists between veterans and proper mental health care are themselves. There continues to be a strong stigma against mental health in both the veteran and regular communities. It's very interesting that within the veteran community, if you look at perceptions of post-traumatic stress, veterans actually have a lesser view of individuals with post-traumatic stress than the civilian community does. I was surprised to hear that one as well, which is unusual, because then if you really look at it, I'm not going to quote the figures because I can't remember what it was, but I mean, there are a large number of veterans who struggle with post-traumatic stress with a clinical diagnosis. And that doesn't even count the number of folks that are dealing with symptoms of post-traumatic stress who haven't had that diagnosed yet. So that number one barrier is ourselves. We have to overcome the stigma. We have to get comfortable talking about these uncomfortable issues in public and sharing the stories that we have. And we've got to be strong enough to ask for help when we need it. We have to get to a point where we realize it's okay to not be okay. And when you recognize that, and people say, well, how do I recognize that? And I'd say, well, I don't know, I'm a bourbon guy. How can you tell I'm having a bad day? Well, when 2 fingers of bourbon become 2 fingers of bourbon, that's when it's time to start looking for help. And I think that's an important thing, because the other aspect of this is, we've put a tremendous amount of resource behind crisis intervention. So if you look at resources like the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, the Veterans Crisis Line, the Veterans Administration has done a tremendous amount of work to try and get better at crisis intervention and expanding care to veterans in crisis, which is wonderful. But we also have to start looking downstream from that point of crisis. If we can intervene earlier before something comes into crisis, and that's where our program came in, right? So when you're dealing with chronic homelessness, when you're dealing with mental health issues, those are paths that can lead to suicide. If we can intervene earlier and provide the resources to get them back on the right path, you never get to a point of crisis. And if you're a compassionate person, well, then that's just the right thing to do. If you're a business person like me, well, I'll tell you, there's a tremendous amount of cost savings when you look at downstream care. And I think that those are the areas that we need to make investment in. And as you mentioned, Wreaths Across America is part of that, because when people come together as a community, that's an important part of mental health in itself, to feel like you're part of that community again. And Wreaths Across America Day, Wreaths Across America as an organization, fosters that sense of community where, whether you're a veteran or not, we can come together and acknowledge the fact that there's been tremendous sacrifices made on our behalf. And it is our responsibility as Americans to live up to the legacy of those sacrifices of those people that have given their lives in defense of the country. So I think that's that's something that we all need to do better at. And I get a lot of phone calls from loved ones who hadn't served, that have a loved one that served, who get nervous about it, and they don't know what to do. And sometimes it's just, well, you got to listen, and you got to just be supportive, but be willing to listen to stories that might make you uncomfortable, and do so in a non-judgmental fashion. So like I said, I think there is a ways to go, but over the past 20 years, we've made tremendous strides towards getting better at mental health care, as well as getting better with the stigma associated with suicide. So
I love it. And I got some money quotes from you there. Really good stuff. I mean, what a great mission. And thank you for reaching out and continuing to, expand your reach to more and more states and territories and around the world. So thank you. And let me know what I can do to help, and let's stay in touch, Joe. Remember, for everyone watching, wreathsacrossamerica.org, and make sure to, participate on December 18th. So thank you so much. And Joe, have a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. You too, Marc.
Okay. Take care. Bye
Bye
now.
now.